Good evening, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and all platforms we go live on social media. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon, a retired NYPD detective with 20 plus years of law enforcement. And if you like all things true crime from a police perspective, please hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live and when I upload another video. Guys, welcome in tonight. We are talking about the arrest of Barry Morphew. But before we get into talking about the arrest of Barry Morphew today in Chaffee County, Colorado, I want to just say a special thank you to all my channel members, my Patreon supporters, and all people who subscribe to this channel and positively interact. We speak about all crime cases across the country, and we talk about people who are missing, and we do this with respect and dignity for the victims and for their families. And I want to say thank you to you, the viewers, for being respectful and being one of the greatest communities here on YouTube. I appreciate each and every one of you. I have two really special guests for you tonight. I have two really special guests. I will introduce them after we show a little bit of media. I know today was an emotional roller coaster for a lot of us. You know, we spent the last year hoping and praying for a good outcome with Suzanne Morphew. And unfortunately today we got the news that, things didn't go the way that we wanted them to go. And, again, there's justice, that the wheels of justice are now starting to turn. There's many stages, as I spoke about earlier, there's many stages of this wheel of justice that has to go on. We talked about the summary arrest, and that's where we are. And then the next step is to get in true bill and get the indictment, the grand jury, and then go forward if he pleads not guilty, which I assume that he's going to, and then we'll have a trial. And then at a trial, we look to get a conviction. So those are the three elements that we're looking at here, and it is not an easy road. As you will hear from the district attorney, she comes out straight out, Linda, and says, we are just getting started. We're just getting started. MC's Audio, thank you for joining. Hello, everybody. Guys, please give me a 1 in the chat if the sound is good for you guys. If the sound needs to go up just a tad bit, put a 2 in the chat so we know how we're doing with the audio. I did mess around a little bit with the dials a couple of days ago, and I want to make sure that everybody's got good audio. So if we got a 1 in the chat, and when the ones outweigh the 2, I'm going to go forward and we're going to listen to a little bit of media here. All right. Looks like we got a whole bunch of 1s going on. So let me move on to this next part and we will get this going. This is again, a little bit of news coverage from today, and I'm happy to bring this to you. So let me get this going. If I can ever find my mouse. There we go, guys. I'll set it back up.
Suzanne Morphew went missing. Her husband now being charged with her murder. Barry Morphew was taken into custody by police this morning in Chaffee County. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Fox 21 Local News right now at 5. I'm Scott Kilberry. Suzanne Morphew was reported missing on Mother's Day of 2020. She had reportedly left her home alone for a bike ride and never returned. Her bicycle was recovered less than half a mile away later that same day. Throughout nearly the year-long investigation into his wife's disappearance, Morphew had maintained his innocence.
If anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you, we miss you, your girls need you.
Morphew has been charged now with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and attempting to influence a public servant. Fox 21's Lauren Scharf breaking the news of the arrest today. She joins us now live outside the Chaffee County detention facility. Now, did Barry actually say anything when he was arrested, Lauren?
Scott, District Attorney Linda Stanley said that as soon as they started questioning Barry Morphew, he asked for an attorney. Now, he is being held without bond inside of the Chaffee County detention facility. This just comes days after Suzanne Morphew would have celebrated her 50th birthday. He is being held again without bond, and his arrest papers have been sealed. Here's video of that arrest off of Highway 50 in Poncha Springs around 9:15 this morning. Suzanne was reported missing on May 10th, 2020, and that same day, her bike was recovered less than 2 miles from their home. We learned that 135 search warrants were executed, 400 interviews conducted, and more than 70 investigators were involved in this case. The DA says Suzanne has still not been found, and this continues to be an ongoing investigation.
Today is a good day, but for my office, this is where the work begins. There's more work to be done. However, this is an important and incredibly crucial step. And today is a good day for Suzanne. As far as I'm concerned, today is all about Suzanne.
Suzanne has 2 daughters who have not spoken publicly. This would have been 1 year on Monday of her disappearance. Barry is expected to be in court tomorrow at 10:30. Reporting live in Salida, Lauren Scharf for Fox 21 News.
Thank you. Now, family members also reacting to the arrest. Suzanne's sister, Melinda, saying today was filled with mixed emotions, telling Fox 21 News, quote, "Today, justice is beginning for my sister." She added that she still loves her brother-in-law and will continue to pray for him and his daughters.
You know, this isn't just about Suzanne. This is about a ripple effect into the lives of so many people that I care about. Barry's family, my family. But you know, it's almost a year, and it's been a year of growth for a lot of us, and it's a relief.
Melinda also thanked law enforcement for their work throughout the investigation. Our coverage, of course, continuing online. There you can watch.
Amazing, right? Melinda, her sister, is saying that she still loves Barry. You know, I gotta say, she's a better person than I am, because if someone took my brother and my sister, their significant other, I wouldn't be as cordial and as forgiving. But I tip my cap to her, and God bless her. God bless her and the entire family. I have one more piece of media I want to queue up, and then I want to bring
the
in
Chaffee County Sheriff's
and then I
Office
wanna
full
bring
press
in-
conference.
Okay, then I want to bring in my guests. So I'm going to just play this because this is a short clip. This is the presser from today. Actually, this may not be a short clip, so let me just see how long it is. If it's too long, then I'm not going to play it. I'll bring in my guests, and we can go from there. Here it is. How long is this thing? It's 14 minutes. I'm going to bring my guests in, and then we'll play it afterwards. So joining me tonight to go over the charges, I have 2 very esteemed guests. Joining me tonight to go over the charges is a retired NYPD homicide detective. He has worked on all kinds of cases when he worked in the squad and did all of his work with the NYPD. Detective Phil Grimaldi is a return guest of the show. I want to say special thank you to Phil for taking out his time. And I have retired police officer Joe Murray, who's also a criminal defense attorney, and he is going to talk about the criminal defense side. So don't get too bad. Don't slug it out with Joe Murray. He's here to explain both sides of this case. Thank you, Phil and Joe, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good to see you, Phil.
Yeah. So listen, I got my first question is going to go out to Phil. Phil, a lot of these viewers, a lot of my people who have been following this case closely for almost a year now. This Mother's Day would be a year, and it's just coming up on Sunday. A lot of folks are saying, "Hey, DutyRon, how can they charge murder without recovery of Suzanne Morphew's body?" You want to talk a little bit about that, Phil?
Sure, Ron. I mean, the first thing that jumps out at me is 135 search warrants. I mean, in any case, any homicide investigation, that's a lot of search warrants. There was something else that jumped out at me that I saw in the media, he had written a note to someone in a clerk in a supermarket or a store, and he only described a baby blue helmet, which they recovered the bicycle. They never recovered the helmet. Maybe this was to throw off investigators, and maybe someone in that area would have found that helmet and would have taken the investigation away from where it was really leading. But going back to the murder one, I mean, that's a heavy charge. I would think that after 135 search warrants, they said there were 400 interviews, 70 investigators. They probably, it sounds to me, if I had to make a educated guess on this, that they put together a pretty good piece of what took place with the disappearance of Suzanne. And for them to wait this long and to charge it, sounds like they tied up a lot of loose ends. And then again, the district attorney said that the investigation was going to really get going now that he was placed under arrest. I don't see him getting any bail or anything like that. I'm sure we'll talk about that after. But there must have been, cell phone activity can place you at a location. He may have said he was one place, cell phone placed him somewhere else. Video cameras everywhere, as we know today. That could also be a piece of it. And then police took control of the victim's home on two separate occasions early on in the investigation, executing search warrants. So they probably recovered maybe blood evidence. There could be a multitude of things, splattering from blood, maybe bloody clothing. There's just so many possibilities. We don't know enough about it yet since the arrest was today, but I'm sure we're going to get a good idea going forward of exactly what took place.
Right. And it brings me to my next point is that, a lot of folks are saying, and myself included, without recovery of a body, has it been your experience that a district attorney is going to sign an arrest warrant for murder one and, attempting to influence a public servant and tampering with evidence without a huge pile of really strong evidence? This is not based on circumstantial phone records. He could have been collared a year ago if there was incriminating phone records. This has to be some really heavy duty evidence.
Well, I don't know how the district attorney's office works in that county, but I know in Brooklyn, anytime that in the NYPD, when we made an arrest or wanted to make an arrest for a homicide charge, we would have to get actual permission from the district attorney's office. They would have to authorize the arrest. So I am sure that a lot of work was done on this, and there was probably a lot of evidence recovered that they're not talking about just yet, and to support the murder one charge, and as well as the attempt to influence the public servant. I mean, Joe will probably be able to put a better light on that, but that sounded like he was maybe deceptive or something in his interviews.
Right. And thank you for bringing Joe into this, because that was my very next question to Joe. Joe, in your professional opinion, I mean, he already lawyered up, right? He's already said, hey, I want an attorney. I don't want to be questioned. So everything stops right there.
Correct.
What kind of roadblocks does a defense attorney have defending somebody when they have a humongous amount of evidence against them? But, they look for anything that's done wrong, right? So everything will be going forward. I'm going to let you talk on that.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing with a no-body homicide is the district attorney has to rule out beyond a reasonable doubt that she's actually dead. Didn't run off, isn't hiding, isn't, she in fact is dead. And that's a big burden. So that can be done forensically. It could be done with witnesses. Sometimes there's someone who's an accessory that helped dispose of the body who will come forward. So we don't really know what the evidence is yet. We're just, spitballing here, but it can be done. But I'll tell you this, with 135 search warrants, and also I think I saw in there that there were 1,400 tips that were communicated to investigators. That's huge. That's a huge amount of information being communicated. But as a defense attorney, with all of this evidence comes the ability to discredit some of that evidence, and maybe it's conflicting or contradictory. So, the more evidence you have, sometimes it's great, but a lot of times when you're able to attack the veracity of it, it sometimes will lead to reasonable doubt.
Right. And you know, you spoke about this on the last live stream that we did. We were covering the case, and you said, you know, everybody's constitutional rights. You have a right to an attorney. You have a right to go through the process. And that's why we're going to hear now the district attorney who's going to talk about, we are just getting started here. This is in its infancy. There's been no discovery because everything has been sealed. All of the case evidence and all of the stuff has been sealed. So at this time, we are just in a holding pattern, basically, to get more information. And we could go right straight through a grand jury and a true bill indictment and going to jury selection before we really hear the meat and potatoes of this case. Correct, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, they're being smart by not discussing the merits of it, in the media. That's inappropriate. It's actually unethical for attorneys to do that. So they're being smart, and they're avoiding the publicity that could get them in trouble with the judge and possibly even a change of venue issue. So I think they're handling it in a smart way.
Yeah, and I think it's really professional and really important, because this is a case that, listen, we're talking about a 50-year-old woman with a mother of 2 children that has potentially here been murdered. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law in the United States. I just wanted to jump over to you, Phil, quickly, because I spoke to a couple of my fans, a couple of good friends, Joey Brooklyn being one of them. He's from your hometown area, Joey Brooklyn. Him and I had this exact discussion, what you mentioned, about when a case like this is active and there's the feds, the CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the locals, the state, local, and federal authorities. Case like this, it was the exact conversation I had with them. The detectives and the investigators don't just go and lock this guy up and grab him. They go to the district attorney and they give them their case. They show them what they have, what type of evidence they have, and the district attorney weighs that evidence out and says, okay, I think we can get an indictment. I think we can get a conviction. They don't really just look for the indictment because that's what's needed to go forward, but they want both. They want that package together. They don't want to indict someone and then have them found not guilty. Am I correct in that assumption? I made that statement today to Joey Brooklyn. I mean, I know from doing cases myself that's what happens.
Well, I would say that the district attorney's office is involved probably early on, since there was so many search warrants that were executed. So they had to provide the search warrants. But Joe made a very good point. In the beginning, they had to really be certain that this woman didn't take off or just disappear. God only knows, the things that can happen, that a person might disappear like that. So they felt confident, and I think maybe because there was an extensive search done, and maybe the witnesses that they spoke to, the people that they spoke to, and again with the search warrants at the home, maybe they saw some evidence of blood or that there was some type of a struggle. And then he was charged with tampering with evidence, which I would think would indicate possibly, disposing of the body or disposing of bloody clothing or something to that effect. So yes, of course, the district attorney's office stays closely involved on a case like this. And once the threshold that they're satisfied with, that they can get a good case together, and sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes a month. In this case, it took a year. And I think that was, that seems like that threshold was met.
Joe, quickly, what are some of the obstacles that a defense attorney has here in a case like this of what you've seen? Talk to the people here, because everybody has the questions. We want to know from the defense side what they're going to be looking at to kind of break down here.
Well, I mean, when you talk about obstacles, in a case like this, a no-body murder case, there's going to be a lot of forensic evidence, and that's hard to refute. If you're facing blood, hair, DNA, that's a tough battle to fight. But I point to the OJ trial. They had enormous amounts of evidence and made some missteps on the prosecution side, like asking him to try on the glove, or giving him the ability to do that. I actually had a case in Manhattan. It involved a jacket, and the judge caught wind of the fact that we were going to ask our client to try on the jacket. And, later on, he told me, he says, "You're not doing that here." The glove that wouldn't fit. So when you have so much evidence, you have to be, face it and attack it and focus on the things where you can raise doubt. It's very hard with things like DNA and fingerprints, to dispute that. The science is pretty good on it. Of course, you look at it, and examine it, have your experts review it. But, those are the big hurdles. That forensic evidence is damning. I'm sure they may have even gone to computers and cell phones and cell sites. All of that is very damning. It's very hard to overcome that. And then, of course, if they did a search warrant on his computer and they're looking at his recent searches and it's how to dispose of a body, I'm going to have a hard time explaining that.
Right. Yeah. So there's so many different variables here, Joe. And, again, like a lot of us have those thoughts in our minds, but it's always great to have the audience and the guests hear from professionals like yourself who have been in these positions. Now, I want to play quickly. This is 14 minutes. I want to play the press conference because it's 14 minutes. I'm going to skip through some of the parts that, there were some questions at the end from reporters, but I want you two gentlemen, if you don't mind, to watch in the background, and then we'll circle back and I'll pick out some of the questions from the audience, but we'll break down, I guess, the charges, the 3 charges, and then we'll talk to Phil about it, and then we'll go to you, Joe, and you can explain maybe some of the, I think one of the more confusing charges is that last charge, the influence of a public servant. And we'll get into more of that from the lawyer side, the law side of it, and then we'll get to it and what me and Phil think it is. And I think we're all on the same page anyways. But let's give this a quick whirl. I'll try to speed it up. I'll try to speed it up and get through some of the parts that are just not not on topic. Some of the reporters asked some questions at the end, but it got a little noisy. So let's let this play, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I got so many screens here. I got to try to find my mouse. That's the great part of what I'm doing right now. All right, here we go. Woohoo!
We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to read you a prepared statement, and then we'll introduce our district attorney and take questions after. Good afternoon. I wanted to thank you for traveling to Chaffee County on such short notice for today's briefing. Before we begin, I just wanted to speak briefly about Suzanne. I have to admit, I did not know Suzanne personally before the beginning of the investigation, but now I feel I've gotten to know Suzanne quite well. I have learned that Suzanne loved her 2 daughters, Mallory and Macy, deeply, and there was nothing she wouldn't do for them. I've also learned that Suzanne had a passion for life and lived it to its fullest. I've also learned that Suzanne was very easy to like and was cherished by her closest friends. I believe people like Suzanne are a rare find, and those who knew her were indeed very lucky. Today marks a major milestone in this investigation of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. We're announcing that at 09:15 hours this morning, the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office arrested Suzanne Morphew's husband, Barry Morphew. He was taken into custody near his home in Poncha Springs. He was alone at the time of his arrest, and he was arrested without incident. Today marks the culmination of thousands of hours in this comprehensive investigative effort to locate the mother of 2 who went missing May 10th of 2020. More than 70 investigators from the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and dozens of other local law enforcement agencies have provided their expertise on this case. We've executed more than 135 search warrants across Colorado. We've interviewed more than 400 individuals in multiple states. Our team has also investigated more than 1,400 tips generated from within and outside of law enforcement. In early April, the extensive work completed by our investigative team was presented to the 11th Judicial District Attorney's Office. In that multiple-hour presentation, we outlined all of the information and evidence we have taken in over the past 12 months. Following that meeting, the District Attorney's Office reviewed our case and information and solidified their decision to move forward on this case. Today is not the day for celebration, nor does it mark the end of this investigation. Rather, it's the next step in this very difficult yet very important journey as we seek justice for Suzanne and her family. I know how deeply this case has impacted our community over the past 12 months. Through multiple conversations I've had with our citizens across the county, one message was clear from everyone, and that's that they wanted answers and they wanted justice for Suzanne. Although I'm not able to offer specific details, I want to assure the community that every action our investigators took in the past year led to today's arrest. This arrest would not be possible without the assistance of our supporting law enforcement agencies, which include the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and of course the 11th Judicial District Attorney, Linda Stanley, and members of her office. Before District Attorney Linda Stanley speaks, I want to extend my deep appreciation to our community for their support they've shown us for over the past year. While this has been a trying time for our citizens, I've seen our community rally around one another and our investigative team. I'd now like to introduce District Attorney Linda Stanley.
My name is Linda Stanley. I'm the District Attorney for the 11th Judicial District, which includes Fremont County, Custer, and Chaffee counties total. I wanted to say that thanks for being here for everybody, and there's a couple of things I'd like to address about this case. First, the investigation is still ongoing. Suzanne, her body has not been found, and we're still looking into that. The investigation is ongoing. Second, Barry Morphew is presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's important to remember. Third, the arrest affidavit is sealed at this time. I cannot and will not discuss it. Fourth, all media inquiries from this date forward should go through my office. However, I'm sure you all are aware and know that we cannot talk about any open or active investigation, and that is per the rules of professional conduct that we will abide by. Lastly, I wanted to say that today is a good day. It's a good day for all of the men and women in law enforcement that have tirelessly worked toward getting here. They worked day in and day out, sacrificing more than any of you will ever know. They even continued working and continued their sacrifices as they were being raked over the coals and second guessed as to their skills and abilities. I'm standing here in front of you on this good day because they never quit. Sheriff Speasy and his deputies at the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, Alex Walker, investigator for the...
I want to just stop it right there just for a second. And I got to tip my cap to this woman. She just took on this job, this district attorney, and you can hear the emotion in her voice. The public and the court of public opinion were dogging every aspect of this case. And I want to make this reminder, and the reason I stopped this is because I want to make a reminder to each and every one of you that are watching the replay and that are watching live. Our law enforcement, men and women across the country on a state, federal, and local level work tirelessly night and day away from their families during holidays to break cases just like this. This is not new news. This happens every day in America. And there's men and women that are out there on every part of this judicial process, right down to the lawyers like Joe Murray here and the district attorneys that fight hard to uphold the laws of this land, the Constitution of the United States. So this woman, I kudos to her and what she's saying here. You know, when you got quick to point your finger at law enforcement and say that, you know, they're doing a shitty job and that they suck, guess what? They spend time away from their families to bring evil to justice. Okay? And I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm just passionate about this. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I know A 99.99% of the viewers right now support law enforcement. But it's important that we listen to what this woman said here. And you could hear how emotional she is in her voice.
11th Judicial District tirelessly worked toward active investigation, and that is per the rules of professional conduct that we will abide by. Lastly, I wanted to say that today is a good day. It's a good day for all of the men and women in law enforcement that have tirelessly worked toward getting here. They worked day in and day out, sacrificing more than any of you will ever know. They even continued working and continued their sacrifices as they were being raked over the coals and second guessed as to their skills and abilities. I'm standing here in front of you on this good day because they never quit. Sheriff Speasy and his deputies at the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, Alex Walker, investigator for the 11th Judicial District, those two individuals in Sheriff Speasy's office in particular are consummate professionals and, quite frankly, some of the best I've ever worked with in my entire professional career. They followed every lead, every tip, and every unanswered question, no matter what direction it led them in. They never compromised the integrity of the investigation. On several occasions over the last few months after I was sworn in on January 12th of this year, I met with these professionals and went through hours and hours of their meticulous investigation. Their investigation was presented to our office just a few weeks ago. For me, today is a good day, but for my office, this is where the work begins. There's more work to be done. However, this is an important and incredibly crucial step. And today is a good day for Suzanne. As far as I'm concerned, today is all about Suzanne. And it's about her family. And it's about all the individuals that knew her and loved her and cared about her. That's what this day is about. And it's a good day. Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and take some questions now.
Can you tell us?
Right down the way.
Thank you. Can I please, the district attorney, if you don't mind, you're not releasing the affidavit. You don't have a body. How can you prove to the members of the public that you have a strong case?
For those that didn't hear the question, he said, we're not releasing the affidavit and we don't have a body, so how can I convince the public that we have a strong case? That's my job. I'm the one that considers how strong my case is before I bring charges, and I wouldn't bring charges unless I was confident.
Suzanne has been missing for nearly a year now. What made you take this step today as opposed to any time in the past year?
Who's that directed to?
Either one.
Would you please?
Yeah, and if I can have you stand in front of the microphone just to make sure
Yeah.
that we pick it up. Suzanne has been missing for nearly a year. What made you take this step today as opposed to any time in the past year?
It's been a culmination of our investigation over the past year. Honestly, it kind of oversimplifies. Today is just any other day. It's been our investigation over the past year that got us where we are today, and based on other information we gathered, we acted on it. I mean, today became the day, but it's been a culmination of everything we've gained over the past year. And I know for everybody here, you say, well, that's hard to understand that because we haven't said so much about the investigation. That's what's so important about this investigation that got us here today, is the amount of everything that's gone into this and what's brought us here, and the ability to remain silent and do the very best we can to put the best case forward. All of that led us to where we are today.
This can also be for the sheriff. You made this arrest today, and you've been searching for Suzanne Morphew for a year. Is there any indication today that she is not alive anymore as you're searching continues?
And repeat the question if you could.
The question is if we've been searching for her and we hadn't found her, and if there's any indication that she wasn't alive today. Is that correct? Well, we believe that she's not alive. We've filed first-degree murder charges, or we're in the process of filing first-degree murder charges. So our belief is that Suzanne is not alive at this time.
We'll go right here.
charges today. When in your investigation did you know that she was no longer alive, and when did you change to it was no longer a missing persons case that you were dealing with? It was now a homicide.
You know, that's actually a really good question. I'm sorry. It's a good question in that it's not the light bulb moment doesn't happen overnight. It's when you begin an investigation, you start collecting information, you gain more information, and as you go along, you continually assess what you're doing, and as time goes by, you start eliminating certain things and start bringing in other things, and as you progress, you go from one point to another and you make realizations, and so your investigation is always it never ends till it's over, if that makes sense, and you're constantly learning things, and so you go from what you believe here to what we present now, and so it's a process, and it's been a long process, been a very tedious process.
Was there a date or a time?
Black trench coat? Yeah, Jen Munro, Valley Voice. I know that District Attorney Stanley said the warrant is overall sealed. Could we let the person know what he's been charged with? You said first degree murder, anything else?
Jan, you're Jan, right?
Yeah.
That was in the early press release we put out. Did it not have the charge?
I don't think it came out in the original.
Okay.
Could you read all the charges?
I don't have them with me. Do you have them? Where's Alex?
When will he make a first appearance successful? Or do we not know yet?
The question was, what is the next step and when is his first appearance? Tomorrow at 10:30 in the morning will be his advisement, where any arguments on his bond will be heard.
All right, I'm gonna end it there. That was enough. I think we all got the gist of that press conference. Let me bring my guests back in. Joe, Phil, I'm gonna let you go first, Joe, on that.
Yeah, sure. I just want to comment. One of your viewers, Audra Gart, she made a great comment. A conversation that they should be having right now as a defense attorney, based on whether or not, there's a determination as to guilt or innocence. But maybe early on, if there's a conversation about recovering the body, locating the body, you could negotiate down from there, because it's got to be gut-wrenching and heartbreaking for a family, a mother whose body is missing. The family wants to have closure. The family wants to be able to have a place, to mourn, a burial. So that's a significant bargaining chip if he would come in and try to negotiate something like that early on. Of course, I'm not making a decision as to his guilt or innocence, but it is something that should be considered.
Yeah, I agree. I have a bunch of questions that came in on the private chat from Josh. So I just want to get quickly. I want to just talk with Phil. What was your take on that presser from the sheriff and from the district attorney?
I mean, when you start an investigation, the girl is reported missing. You speak to the husband and next of kin, and then I'm sure they did some other interviews. And at some point, they started to form a direction. And once you form that direction, you start to eliminate things that could have been maybe important in the beginning, and you decipher whether or not they're trustworthy to the case and if they're pertinent to the case, and then you move forward. And then I think once the first search warrant was executed, that probably led them to the next one and the next one and on and on. And one thing that wasn't mentioned early on when we first came on, he has a construction background. He owns a landscaping business. So maybe there was some tools that he could have used to help him dispose of the body and things like that. So I keep saying that 135 search warrants really sticks out with me, that a lot of work was done. As far as the district attorney goes, I thought was very good. You could see she's passionate. Like you said, there was emotion in her voice about this poor young lady. And when you look at their picture, they look like a beautiful couple and everything. And the fact that they're not saying a lot, I think, is great. There are times when you want to release to the media, let's put something out there. And I've had a case where, within 5 days, we had a picture of the guy, a video. We put it out there. We got a call that night. And the guy was under surveillance for 2 months till he was arrested. But in this particular case, they're keeping a very close, tight-lipped about it. I think that's a good practice in general, and that's the way I like to do an investigation. This what I would characterize is a full court press. If this was a New York City case with 70 investigators, 400 interviews, all of these search warrants, I would consider it a full court press. The type of investigation that you would get, high profile, police officer, God forbid, killed, or something of that nature.
Yeah, and I think the sheriff did a great job of addressing why they were quiet, why it was important for them to keep themselves quiet and out of the public eye. Because as our good friend Bill Cannon, a 27-year vet of the Manhattan North Homicide Squad, says all the time, sometimes the press can be our worst enemy, and sometimes the press can be our best friend. But when you have a case as such, you do not want to risk it. It's not like you're in Atlantic City or in Vegas rolling the dice. This is a matter of people's lives here, and it's very important that the public understands. And don't anybody in the chat, don't take this the wrong way. When I am passionate about speaking about the support for law enforcement and the statement that I made before, it's for a good reason, because these men and women that are out there sacrifice their family lives for complete strangers to bring closure, to bring justice, and Joe Murray can tell you, justice has two sides. It's not a one-way street. There's a lot of wrongful convictions that are out there, and there's a lot of people who are wrongfully convicted or accused. So as this district attorney said, you're innocent until proven guilty. She said it right there in the press conference. Joe, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I thought it was a good press conference. They really presented the case from what they can discuss very well, very professionally, very respectfully, including the victim and the family. So kudos to them. I think they handled it very well. I do believe everything you're saying about, the process is true. We treat everyone the same. You are innocent until proven guilty. And we have a trial process. That's your due process, your opportunity to be heard, and you have all your trial rights. This is the crucible of the evidence being presented, where we test it. We test the veracity of it. We have a jury who sits and evaluates the credibility of these witnesses. And credibility is very important. And that goes for the science as well. The science is only as good as how it's presented. So, the jury evaluates a lot, and we love that. That's why I always say we have the greatest system. Sometimes we have, malfunctions like anything else that involves, human nature, but we have the greatest system, and I look forward to seeing the system work in this case.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like a lot of people say, hey, why is he being afforded innocence before proven guilty? That's our court system. We all get very emotionally charged up. You got a woman who is a 2-time cancer survivor. She has 2 children. She's got family. Her father died of cancer before they found out. Gene Mormon was battling cancer, her dad, and he died without knowing what happened to his daughter. Now we hope that obviously they're in the lap of the Lord together. But at the end of the day, it's a really emotionally charged case. And most of us people who are outside of the law enforcement realm, we don't know what goes on. I'm talking for the audience here. We don't know what goes on in the inner workings and then behind these cases, how much emotional attachment, we try to desensitize ourselves as detectives, but it's really hard because we're human. We're not machines, and Phil, you spoke about that many times, how, we work on these cases against children, cases against seniors, people who are handicapped, mothers, we go full tilt on these cases. And if we didn't get any type of emotions, we wouldn't be human. So there's a lot of emotion that goes into these investigations, and people lose track of it. But Barry is in the Chaffee County lockup. He's in jail. He's going to be brought before court tomorrow, and there should be, Joe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there should be a hearing to make, I'm trying to say this in layman's terms, there's going to be a hearing to determine whether he's eligible to be let out on bail, or as they call it, bond. You need community ties, you need no flight risk, and they look at, obviously the judge looks at the seriousness of the charges, and given the murder first degree, I do not think that he is going to make bond. Any thoughts on that, Joe?
I agree with you, and you described it perfectly. Your ties to the community, whether or not you're a flight risk, but the overwhelming charge here, it's a first degree murder. Very, very rarely are any murder cases result in a bond or bail. So I'm going to join your prediction. I don't think this guy's going to see a trial from the outside. He'll be pursuing this from the inside.
Yes. And we hope that he rots in jail, after obviously being convicted, found guilty by a jury of his peers. Phil, any thoughts on, what goes into this day? I mean, the Sheriff Speasy, John Spezial, he talked about how much investigation goes into this, how many man hours and what they've done. I mean, looking at the the enormity of this case, the landscape. I'm going to show a little bit of some of the landscape that they were dealing with. Let me shut that noise off. But I'm going to show you guys quickly before you answer that. A look at some of the terrain that these folks, the law enforcement are dealing with, and it is a tremendous. Look at that. I'm going to leave you guys in there. Look at the mountains with the white caps in the background. This is actually a video of Barry Morphew's. We don't know if it's his girlfriend. I'm not going to say girlfriend, but they basically, the news reporter said this is a friend of his, a female friend of his. You take it for whatever it's worth, but this is the home of the female friend. And she went to go interview the female friend, and those are some federal vehicles, I think, parked over there. It looks like the GMC. When she went to the door, the federal or the authorities that were there said she cannot be interviewed. But look at that. I mean, just the Colorado mountains. I mean, what do you think, Phil? What we're used to hunting the concrete jungles.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. The concrete jungles of the projects on a lot of cases when I worked in Coney Island. But this is obviously a massive area to conduct search, and different things might have put them in different places within that area. And I think the sheriff stressed that it's a good day because they probably put a lot of hard work, a lot of hard effort into the case that they came to where they are today, charging this guy. And there was one other thing I wanted to say about the media. When the media doesn't have a lot of information, it's actually a good thing in a case like this, because now maybe you're going to do an interview of the husband or someone else that's close to the case, and they really don't know where the direction of the case is going. So when you get them, you catch them off guard, and you're going to really get a good feel whether or not they're being truthful or deceptive in any way. And you're really loaded, like you're holding all the cards, so to speak. And when you get to that person, that interview, they don't know too much. There's not that much in the media. It's actually a great thing. Sometimes we said earlier, you want to put things out there to maybe generate some tips and stuff like that. But when there's too much going to the media, a lot of times you'll go to do an interview and they're lawyering up, and then you're not going to get much out of them. And one other thing, when Joe was talking about looking at evidence and possibly giving up the body, that's probably going to be looked at once they analyze this evidence. And if he's got a good defense attorney, his defense attorney is going to tell him, you have a very steep uphill climb to beat this. There's a landslide of evidence, if that's the case. And at that point, I would think that maybe he might offer to his client, maybe we can get you when you're not going to, if they have the death penalty, no death penalty or something to that effect, maybe get out and see the light of day sometime in the future. Give up the body, and that might be negotiated at some point. Let's hope for that, so the family can get closure. I mean, obviously, this young woman, mother of two, they really need closure in this thing. By finding the remains would be some type of closure.
Right. Yeah, you bring up some really good points. I wanted to ask the next question to Joe. This comes in from one of our viewers. The question is, will Barry be placed under suicide watch? And what about his nephew, Trevor Noel? He made a statement early on in this case, but we'll answer the first part. Joe, what do you think? Will potentially this client be placed into suicide watch?
Sure. I mean, there's always an assessment of when you take somebody into custody, it's just natural. You do their medical assessment if they have any medical needs. And then you also look to a psychological, is this person at risk? Naturally, if he's, overwhelmed by this, you'll see signs of that and symptoms of that. So I think it's a good question. It's something that I think a lot of these custodial institutions deal with on a regular basis. So I'm sure there's going to be some type of assessment done as he goes in.
Phil, do you concur with that?
Ron, I would like to add to that may take place in the request for bail, in the bail hearing, because they're going to look at all the things, flight risk, if he's got ties to the community, and they may say, well, let's have a psychological evaluation, because if he is suicidal and he can go home and maybe, has access to a weapon or, some other means to kill himself. So I'm sure that's all going to come into play too. I don't see it as well. I agree with you too, that
Right.
this guy's going to get bail on a first-degree murder charge. I mean, it sounds very heinous.
Right. And, Phil and Joe, you guys might not know about this, but I've been covering this case for a year. When the victim's brother came from Indiana and he had a search party of between 500 and 700 people, when he came to Colorado, he was going on to Barry Morphew's property, and he had a shotgun slung over his shoulder. And basically, so he has access to firearms out there. It's not like New York and California where they have strict gun laws. I think a lot of people are armed over there. There's hunters. He is a hunter, landscape contractor, and things of that nature. But the second part of the question was his nephew made a statement, and I talked to you, Phil, and I think might have mentioned it to Joe, but I'm not sure. His nephew on his side, Trevor Noel, made a plea on the news early on in this case, and he started a Facebook page which I think is not in existence anymore, and a GoFundMe. It was like $33,000 in there, but it's never been used or anything like that. I was very suspect of this kid because of the way he was talking and he was doing the same thing that Barry was doing and saying, we're searching for her, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'm sure that they're looking at him. They've looked at him. One of the reporters asked a question and they said there was no other suspects at this time. But again, the detectives and the investigators, and Phil, I know you can talk about this. Even if there were other additionals, they're not going to say, yeah, we are looking at the nephew and we are looking at this one. They're not going to expose that, correct?
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's two ways to look at it. If they were zeroing in on the nephew, they may have said, there could be arrests to follow, maybe to shake him up, shake the tree a little bit, see what, monitoring his cell phone records, or his maybe even, monitoring his phone. And, like they've been closed-lipped in this case, they've been very tight-lipped. They don't want to let anything out, because if they do have the opportunity, maybe go interview him again or put him in the room and talk to him, they don't want him to lawyer up. So they're saying, no, there's nobody else we're looking at, but yet they might just grab him and do a quick interview with him and hit him some facts that he might not be able to get himself out of.
Right. And with 1,400 tips coming into the tip line, I'm sure that they've investigated everything under the sun. I mean, these guys have gone down many rabbit holes in this case. Again, this as being a homicide investigator. All leads get looked at unless they're completely ridiculous and off the charts. Another question coming in from 12-Step Woman is it possible that Barry has murdered others and that's more the reason why they kept the investigation close to the vest? I would say no to that. Not the reason why they would keep it close to the vest, but it is possible that he could have done this in the past. We don't know. But my answer to that would be they're not keeping it to the vest because they think he's murdered many other people. They just do not want to jeopardize the the investigation. They don't want to jeopardize the legitimacy of the investigation by putting out information. And I'm sure my guests would agree with that.
Absolutely, yes. I agree.
Yep. And here's the last question. It comes in from Chastity. I'm curious who Barry tried to bribe and wondering what evidence he was tampering with. Phil, I'll let you take that question and then I'll go to Joe.
Well, I think the tampering would probably be some type of tampering with evidence, either with disposal of the body or, like I said earlier, getting rid of maybe bloody clothes, bloody equipment that he may have used to dispose of the body, a car, different things like that. And as far as the other one, I don't know really how to read on that. I've never heard of that charge before. I think Joe could probably take that one and come up with a better understanding of what that exactly means.
Because Joe is the attorney.
Yeah, well, Phil's right. We don't have that charge in New York, but it seems somewhat similar to like the federal charge when you're lying to a federal officer. Like everyone will remember General Flynn. General Flynn was prosecuted for lying to a federal officer. Here, this charge, I'll just read the first line. Any person who attempts to influence any public servant by means of deceit or by threat of violence or economic reprisal against any person or property, and it goes on and on, but there it is. So the fact through deceit, they're trying to influence, I'm sure, investigators. That's what this charge is relevant to. So I think the deceit angle is more likely the reason why they charged it.
Yeah, and I heard a Colorado attorney earlier, Scott Reich from Crime Talk with Scott Reich. He did mention that, Joe. He said that that was a little bit more of the angle that he was going at. And he studies law. He's a defense attorney just like yourself, but he studies, he practices law in the state of Colorado. So I heard him speak about it maybe an hour before we went live. And I think that's really what that was the direction he was going in that he believed that it was some type of deception that he created to throw law enforcement off of him. So is there any other? I just want to quickly just say, because we're gonna get ready to close up, but I wanted to say hello to everybody in the chat and say quickly thank you to each and every one of you for your super chats, for the people who shared this video, for the positive engagement, for the support of law enforcement. And for those of you who are not following me, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up for Suzanne. Share this video out onto your social media platform. Follow me on all social media, one word, DutyRon, DutyRon, and I'll put that banner up really quick. And make sure you check out DutyRon.com. Go over to my website where there'll be links to all things law enforcement related. You can find a lot of links to domestic violence, computer crimes, crimes against children, runaways, things of that nature. I have a whole bunch of stuff linked on my site. Follow me on all things social media, one word, DutyRon, and there's the end of my self-promotion. I appreciate everybody coming on in here. Let me just look quickly in the private chat and see if there's anything. Josh is looking for questions. Guys, if you have any questions, put it in the chat quickly. If you want, let's do a quick roll call. Let me know where you're watching, city and state or your country. I'd like to say hello and give you a shout out. Thank you so much for the super chat. Kathy from Texas says, you are the best, DutyRon. Thank you for the $25 super chat. Kathy, you are the best. And I love the great state of Texas. My grandparents are from there. So I spent a lot of time as a kid in the great state of Texas. It's hot as hell in the summer, but I love the people down there. Let me just take a quick peek. Thank you, gentlemen, for being patient. I try to just keep this to a minimal, but I have to interact with my chat. Hello from Florida. Good to see you. Hello from Long Island, New York. One of my neighbors. Good to see you. Chicago. Bang, bang, shoot 'em up. Chicago. Audrey. Thank you so much. Arkansas. Good to see you. California. Sheila checking in from Ireland. Good to see you. Nice Italian woman from Ireland, Sheila? No.
I bet.
Nope. Staten Island. Timmy Acosta coming on in. Good to see you, Tim. Thank you for joining. Great friend of the channel. Great friend of mine. Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Hello from Indiana, Suzanne Morphew's home state. New Orleans, great to see you. Thank you, New Orleans. I love to see all the people from all over the place checking in. New Jersey, good to see you. Australia, put another prawn on the Barbie. We'll be all right over, the three of us. We're on our way. California, good to see you. Thank you. LA, North Carolina, British Columbia, Canada. Look who's here. It's Mike, MC's Audio. He's in the chat. Good to see you, Mike, Connecticut. Mike, you better keep it down. Mom's going to get woken up. You better keep it down, Mike. I love that kid. Your neighbor in Massachusetts. Great to see you. All right, cool. I think we did a good roll call. That was a good one. Evie checking in. So hello. San Mateo, California. Excellent. Anybody from Guam out there? Anybody? Yeah. So listen, again, this is not a victory by any landslide here. We still have a lot of work to do on the prosecution side. The defense is going to listen, guys. There's going to be a defense attorney, probably private. This guy's got money. He's lawyered up. He's going to have a private attorney. I would have to say there's not going to be a court-appointed attorney for Barry Morphew. He will be represented by probably one of the best that he can get his hands on. He's going to need it. Wow, there's New Zealand checking in. Woo! Hi.
Nice.
Wow, Illumination. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. That's a hell of a profile picture there. I like it, though. Thank you. But yeah, I would imagine he's going to lawyer up with a really good attorney. He's going to need it. We know that. We're gonna follow this closely, and I hope my guests will come back and join me for a little bit more of a conversation about this, because tomorrow there will be the bond hearing, and like we predicted. I mean, don't hold us to it. Don't bet your pension or your retirement fund on it. But I would have to say that there's a 99.9999% chance that he will be a remand with no bail. I think that's what we'll be hearing, right, gentlemen?
I think so. Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ron,
I just want to say though, I just want to say, doing my job as the defense attorney, getting 12 strangers together to agree on each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt, particularly when there's no body, is a tough task. So don't be surprised about how this thing twists and turns. We'll wait till we see the evidence, but know this, it is very hard just on the surface to get a conviction. And we have it set up that way because we want to make sure we don't have wrongful convictions.
Right. Yeah.
Ron, I just want to add one thing to that. It's not like it's never been done. He's right. It's very difficult. I had the occasion, a colleague of mine, Tommy Dades, Detective Tommy Dades, worked on it started out as a missing person case, and it was an organized crime related homicide. It took him a long time. Body never recovered, indicted, and prosecuted and convicted several people in that case. Obviously there were informants that corroborated a lot of the stuff that went on. More than one, and I think that's why they were successful. And there's been one or two other cases where convictions have been, accomplished without a body. So it's not impossible, but Joe's right; it's very difficult.
Scott Peterson was convicted without a body recovered, and he subsequently is trying to contest that. But that's
her body was eventually covered after the trial, I believe.
Yes,
she floated up from the lake. I believe it was a huge lake or something.
Yeah. So Dawn Marie is a good friend and a moderator of the chat. She sends a message in that says, "Will they freeze his money?" Now that's a pretty open-ended question, and I don't know, Joe. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's something called the Son of Sam law. Now, I just want to distinguish that. Everyone thinks of the Son of Sam as somebody profiting from their crimes. Well, in New York, we had a Son of Sam law. We were one of the first, and it was the case of Eddie Byrne. Eddie Byrne was assassinated. He was executed while guarding a witness's house. Well, one of the guys who was convicted of his murder won a lawsuit while in prison, a civil rights lawsuit. It was about $300,000. So the legislature in New York got together and amended the Son of Sam law to include anyone convicted of a B violent felony or more, regardless of notoriety. The Crime Victim Services can seize their assets and hold it for up to 5 years, and then notify the victims, the money's here, go file your case. So we amended that statute because of a tragedy, in the Eddie Byrne case, but other jurisdictions have done that. I have not looked at that, but that's a great insight, somebody to bring that to light. If they do have that amended Son of Sam statute, this could be something that they'll do.
Yeah.
Something to definitely look into for sure.
We're going to keep a close eye on this case, and I know that you guys both, if you have the time, I know you'll come back. Joe, I know you're busy. I know you're very busy, Joe, and I appreciate you guys spending the time here. There's been 400 or 500 people watching during this whole hour, so I promised you guys under an hour. I'm going to stick to that. Oh, it's too late. It's an hour and 5. I owe you guys dinner. I owe both of you guys a dinner. Guys, I want to just wish a lot of love and respect to all of the fans of the DutyRon, Crime Time with DutyRon. You guys are awesome. We have one of the best communities, the most respectful communities. And the reason we have that is not just because of me. It's because of all of us together, working together. You guys are getting a police perspective when you subscribe to this channel, when you become a channel member and a Patreon supporter. You're getting direct access, not just to me and my skills, but to my esteemed guests, guys like Phil Grimaldi and Joe Murray, who have walked the walk, talked the talk. They've seen both sides of this process. When we arrest somebody and then we go to trial and testify, we get to see the inner workings of the prosecution and how it goes. And that is a lot of patrol cops who don't become detectives and don't do investigations. They never really get to see that. They often just make their arrest and hand it off, and then they just go back on to doing other things. So when you work on the investigations, you get to see the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak, of the criminal justice system. So that's why I think it's important that we bring in guests like Joe Murray, guests like Phil Grimaldi and Bill Cannon and all of the people. I'm going to have Barbara Butcher come on, and we're going to talk about the Chad Daybell case where they're questioning some of the DNA evidence, and there's an ongoing battle with the defense, and we're going to talk about that probably next week. I'm going to put everything on pause to give coverage to this case as it unfolds. So I really appreciate everybody. I want to say special thank you to my guests. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Joe, I appreciate it. Bill, thank you.
My pleasure.
As I like to end these things, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America, and God bless each and every one of us here in the chat and all victims of crime and their families throughout the world, throughout the United States. Good night from New York City, and thank you so much for joining. Love and respect from my